Hey everyone! Today you'll hear a short retelling of the movie Rebel Ridge. Enjoy watching. Terry Richmond was just peacefully riding his bicycle down the road when suddenly a police car slammed into him. The cop jumped out, pulled a gun, and shouted, "Don't move!" Then without hesitation, he hit Terry with a taser. "Not too late yet? You want another one?" He sneered. The officers claimed Terry had stolen the bike. They handcuffed him, searched his backpack, and found a suspicious package. Inside, bundles of cash. More than $36,000. The cops immediately decided it must be drug money. But in reality, Terry had planned to use that money to pay bail for his brother. $10,000 for the bond, and the rest to buy a pickup truck. The officers agreed to let him go, but with one condition. "The money stays with us," said the sergeant. "We're confident it came from drug dealing." Terry tried to explain that he had sold his share of a restaurant to get that cash, but the cops didn't care. Now he'd have to wait for a court summons. If he responded, they'd arrest him. If he ignored it, the police would simply keep the money. They took off his handcuffs, wished him a good day, and drove away. Finally, Terry arrived at the courthouse. But instead of bail money, all he had was a seizure receipt. That meant his cousin would soon be transferred to a state prison. Desperate, Terry turned to a lawyer, Summer McBride. She explained that the seizure was completely legal. All the police needed was a reasonable suspicion of drug involvement. And here's the most shocking part. The chief of police could even keep the seized money as a kind of departmental contribution. Still, Summer said there might be a way to fight back. But going to court would cost twice as much as the money he lost. Terry told her that his brother, Michael, had once testified against a dangerous crime boss, so he couldn't be sent to state prison. He'd be killed immediately. Now the only thing Terry could do was find another $10,000 as soon as possible. He called his former employer, who promised to send the full amount via bank transfer. But Terry had no friends in this city, so that night he slept in the woods. The next morning, he went to the police station and filed a complaint. But as soon as he started describing the officers involved, Officer Sims walked away, then returned, bringing in one of those same cops, Officer Lan. Lan tossed Terry's ID in his face and barked, "Get the hell out of here before I arrest you again." Suddenly, the chief of police, Sandy Byrne, entered. He calmly said the arrest had been lawful, and that Terry had been treated with respect. Then came the threat. If Terry kept bothering his officers, they'd charge him with harassment. "So why don't you turn off that recorder?" Byrne said, "and kindly leave my station." Terry tried one last time to reason with him. "Just return $10,000. I'll forget about the rest." Byrne smirked. He liked that offer. He even promised Terry could visit his cousin tomorrow. "Thanks," said Terry. "Now get lost," replied Byrne. That night, Terry again slept in the woods. But by morning, he realized Byrne had lied. The prison bus with his cousin had already left. Terry sprinted through the forest, cutting across dirt trails to catch up with the prison bus. He finally managed to reach it on the highway. Running alongside, he shouted to his brother Michael through the window, "Tell them to delay your transfer. Everyone knows who you are now. You're in danger." But Terry's problems were only beginning. His former boss called to say he couldn't send the money anymore. Right after Terry's complaint, the police raided his restaurant, claiming it was being used for drug sales, and seized the owner's safe with all the cash inside. Terry returned to lawyer Summer McBride, but now she too was under pressure. If she kept helping him, she'd lose her job. Still, Summer decided to investigate quietly. She discovered that Michael's bail had been set way too high, and his court date delayed by 90 days, and there were many similar cases. It all smelled like a massive police scam, but someone was already watching her. Meanwhile, the cops dug up Terry's background. They learned he was a former Marine, but supposedly had no combat experience. That made the police chief, Byrne, relax a little. Until the next morning, Terry walked straight into the police station again. Byrne, smug and satisfied, mocked him. "So you thought you could bargain in my station? What were you before, a mechanic?" Terry replied calmly, "No, I was in the Marines. They just found a way to use me inside the country." Byrne froze for a moment. He realized he might have just underestimated the wrong man. But it was already too late. Officer Sims soon found out the truth. Terry had been a combat instructor, a master of close quarters fighting. When Byrne drew his pistol, Terry disarmed him instantly. He even unloaded the weapon, then made it look like he was taking Byrne hostage. In seconds, he neutralized Officer Lan as well. The Marine turned the police station into chaos. Using his jiu-jitsu training, Terry took down several officers with brutal precision. He dragged them into another room, cut the phone line, and ordered them to sit down. Officer Sims, realizing the situation was out of control, handed over her gun and helped restrain her own colleagues. Terry then sent her to the evidence storage room. "Go get my money," he said. 10,000. A deal's a deal. Outside, armed redneck deputies surrounded the building. To escape, Terry made Sims pretend to arrest him. They walked out calmly, Sims holding his arm, and showing a passing patrol car that everything was under control. When they reached the car, Terry returned her gun, grabbed his bike, and rode away toward the courthouse. At last, he managed to post bail for his brother Michael. Then Terry met with Summer again and told her his plan: to turn himself in and get into prison with his brother, to protect him from the inside. But before he could act, an entire SWAT team stormed the courthouse. They ordered Terry to his knees and shot him with a taser on the spot. When he woke up, medics were checking his pulse. The chief of police, Byrne, climbed into the car beside him. Byrne admitted, "If I'd known who you really were, I wouldn't have messed with you." He explained that he'd seen a stash of cash and weapons in a warehouse. Their department wasn't getting proper funding, so they had to come up with creative solutions. The car stopped near a hospital. Byrne threw $26,000 on the ground, unlocked Terry's cuffs, and said coldly, "Your brother's been attacked in custody, badly stabbed." Then came the ultimatum: take the money and disappear, or go down for 30 years. You won't get another chance. Terry said nothing. Later, he went to the hospital, but his brother died before waking up. Broken and furious, Terry packed up his few belongings from the woods and climbed into Summer's car. She offered him a ride. A police car followed them from a distance. Summer told him she had found dozens of cases where bail amounts were way too high, and every inmate was kept for exactly 90 days before trial. "Why 90 days?" Terry asked. But he already knew. It was all part of the cover-up. Still, he no longer cared. All he wanted was to leave this corrupt town behind. Just in case, Terry gave Summer his phone number. That night, everything went to hell again. Cops broke into Summer's house. They injected her with drugs and tossed a used syringe into her sink to make it look like she'd relapsed. Half conscious and terrified, Summer almost called the police for help. But then she remembered who the real enemy was. Instead, she grabbed her phone and dialed Terry. Moments later, he arrived in his newly bought pickup truck. He found Summer in the bathroom, pale, shaking, barely breathing. She confessed everything. Summer was in the middle of a custody battle for her daughter. If this incident became public, she'd lose her child forever. The cops knew exactly how to break her. They dug up her past. Years ago, she had a minor drug problem and even faced a petty theft charge for stealing a lawnmower. The next morning, Summer showed up to work, exhausted and broken. The judge had already been informed about her relapse, and she was forced to take a drug test right there in the courthouse. She realized everything she cared about. Her job, her daughter, her reputation was gone. Meanwhile, Terry tried to stay under the radar, but Officer Land found him again. He turned on his siren and ordered Terry to pull over. Another police car soon joined in. Terry raised his hands. "Listen, I'm done fighting. I just want to leave." "But something happened today." Land cut him off. "Chief Byrne gave you a lucky ticket, and you threw it away." Then Land pulled his gun and fired. The bullet hit Terry in the shoulder, but the Marine reacted instantly. He tased Land, knocking him unconscious. Elsewhere, the chief of police, Byrne, was watching his daughter at home. A police car stopped by their house, a silent warning that the situation was escalating. Terry hid his truck under a bridge and called Summer. She told him she had a friend inside the police department, someone who advised her to leave the city immediately. But Summer refused to run away without him. She met Terry at a small roadside restaurant. Her former boss, Mr. Liu, was there, and at that moment, he was actually removing the bullet from Terry's shoulder. "Thank you, sir," Terry said. Liu smiled. "I fought in the Korean War. On the other side," he joked. "Good thing our countries made peace." It was then Terry understood. They were being hunted in silence. If this were official, the cops would have sent SWAT, not quiet assassins. This wasn't justice. It was cover-up and clean-up. Summer decided to push back. She met a fellow lawyer and asked him for help. He didn't say much but hinted, "You should visit the judge." So Terry did. The terrified judge whispered, "Please, don't hurt me." He explained everything. It all started after the police killed an innocent man. The resulting lawsuit nearly bankrupted the town, so the police department found a solution. Now the city's budget was being refilled with illegally seized bail money. Hundreds of people were kept behind bars for 90 days, just long enough for the body cam recordings to expire. After that, all evidence was deleted, and no one could prove anything. They even framed Michael, Terry's brother, to keep the system running. The judge told him the video evidence from Michael's arrest was still stored somewhere. On a hard drive beneath the courthouse, in the evidence vault. That same night, the cops made their move. They planned to burn the vault and destroy everything. The storage was packed with hundreds of drives, too many to save. But Summer remembered something crucial. Each police car also stored data on SD cards. There were dozens of cards, and one of them held the footage of Michael's arrest. Summer ran to the courthouse to retrieve her own urine test, hoping to buy time. But the cops caught her inside. Terry, waiting outside, saw them shove Summer into a police car. They stopped briefly at a red light next to another patrol vehicle. That's when Terry rammed into them with his truck. He yanked one officer out, cuffed him, and stole his phone. Then he called the only person who could help, Officer Sims. They arranged a deal at sunrise, Summer in exchange for the memory cards. But of course, nothing ever goes as planned. At dawn, the trap was set. An entire armed police unit waited at the rendezvous point. They were ready to take Terry down. But when they finally spotted his truck, something felt off. Officer Marston smashed the window open, only to find that the driver wasn't Terry at all. It was a bound and gagged cop, left there as bait. At that same moment, Terry was already inside the police evidence vault, breaking through a wall with brute force. He stormed into the room, disarmed Byrne, and fired a few rounds from a rubber bullet shotgun, knocking the corrupt chief to the ground. Officer Sims appeared behind him. Terry wrestled her gun away, but didn't hurt her. He realized she had been helping Summer all along. "Listen to me," she begged. "Finish this, end it now." Terry handed Sims the SD cards. Then he put on a bulletproof vest and made a grim promise. "If anything happens to Summer, I'll burn every last dollar in this building." But suddenly Sims raised her gun and said, "I won't let anyone die today." Terry walked outside slowly, throwing a duffel bag full of weapons to the ground. Sims turned the memory cards over to Lan, but the corrupt officer crushed them under his boot. Inside, Summer, half drugged and terrified, was about to be executed by Lan. He raised his pistol, but Marston, his partner, snapped. "Enough, we're arresting him." "She's going to the hospital." It turned out that Marston was the friend who'd been secretly helping Summer all along. Then the chaos exploded. Byrne, wounded and furious, tried to shoot Marston, but the bullet hit him in the leg. Blood poured out fast. The cops started arguing. Should they call an ambulance or just let him die? Terry grabbed Marston and dragged him behind a car. Sims hesitated, but in the end, she didn't fire. Then Terry did what Marines do best. He fought back. He threw flashbang grenades, filled the parking lot with smoke, and charged straight into the gunfire. In close combat, he moved like a storm, breaking bones, disarming weapons, and taking down officer after officer. When he reached Lan, Terry unleashed everything. Elbows, knees, rage, until the crooked cop dropped lifeless to the ground. Terry jumped into a nearby police car. Inside, barely conscious, was Summer. He injected her with an antidote for overdose and carried Marston into the back seat. But they weren't safe yet. Their car had been hit, the tire blown out. Behind them, more sirens wailed. Byrne and Sims coordinated a maneuver to block the escape. But Sims suddenly turned her wheel and rammed into Byrne's car instead. The other cops froze. No one dared open fire on a vehicle carrying a wounded officer. So Terry was free, for now. He drove straight to the hospital, carrying Summer in his arms. Then he grabbed a fire axe from the wall, smashed open the trunk, and pulled out the body cam recorder, the final proof of everything. As he stood in the hospital parking lot, sirens echoing in the distance, he finally handed over the recording to honest officers who had just arrived on the scene. Justice was coming,